All right, so get ready to dive deep into the life of Tao Yuming.
Tao Yuming.
Yeah, a Chinese poet who lived over 1,500 years ago.
Wow.
And, he's considered one of the greats, but get this.
Okay.
He wasn't about chasing fame or fortune.
Really?
Instead, he chose a life of simplicity, farming, and of course, writing.
Interesting.
But here's where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
The guy wrote his own biography,
Oh, wow.
but he called himself Master Five Willows.
Master Five Willows. It's
Yeah.
anything but your typical autobiography.
Right.
He uses this persona, this Master Five Willows, to explore his ideals and, in a way, critique the society he lived in.
Okay, so before we get into that, can you set the scene for us?
Yeah.
Tao Yuming lived during the Eastern Jin dynasty, not exactly known for its peace and prosperity, right?
Not quite. Imagine constant upheaval, power struggles, corruption.
Oh, yikes.
There was a real sense of moral decay.
Yeah.
This context is so crucial for understanding why Tao Yunming chose to distance himself from that world.
So, Master Five Willows, it's like he's crafting an alter ego, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what's the significance of that name, especially in his time?
You're spot on.
Okay.
Back then, choosing a pen name wasn't just about being artsy.
Right.
It was a powerful statement, especially for someone like Tao Yunming, who was disillusioned with the Eastern Jin court.
Yeah.
Five Willows evokes this image of a simple life, at one with nature.
I see what you mean.
Yeah.
And the willow itself, it bends but never breaks.
Exactly. It represents resilience, integrity, qualities Tao Yunming clearly valued above all else.
So he's sending a message with this name.
Absolutely.
Okay.
He even starts his biography with a curious omission.
Wait, you're talking about how we don't even get Tao Yuanming's real name.
Yeah.
What's that all about? Was that common back then?
Not really. By withholding his given name, he's adding a layer of anonymity, almost like he's saying, judge me not by my name, but by the life I choose to live.
Oh, I like that.
He's stepping back from the ego that often came with biographies of that era.
Right.
And remember, this was a time when openly criticizing the government or acting superior could land you in trouble.
All right, so we've got this poet living in chaotic times, embracing a simple life, and calling himself Master Five Willows.
Yeah.
Let's dig into the text itself. What kind of details do we get about this guy?
Well, he describes himself as someone who loves reading.
Okay.
But, and this is fascinating, he says he's not seeking deep understanding.
Hold on, what? How do you even read like that?
Right.
Wow.
It sounds almost like a contradiction.
Yeah.
But remember that context I mentioned.
Yeah.
The Eastern Jin dynasty was big on scholarship, but it had become very academic,
Okay.
obsessed with tiny details and literal interpretations.
Ah, so you're saying this not seeking deep understanding was actually Tao Yuanming's way of rebelling against that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He was more interested in connecting with the heart of the text. The
Okay.
feeling, the meaning behind the words. It's like he's saying, I don't need to dissect every line. I want to experience the essence of the work.
That's pretty profound.
Yeah,
Especially for someone who clearly loved to read.
right.
But speaking of contradictions, this
Yeah.
Master Five Willows character,
Mhm.
he's also described as someone who loved his wine.
Oh, yeah.
Like, really loved his wine.
He did. He did.
But there are mentions of him not always being able to afford it,
Right.
relying on friends to bring some over.
Yeah.
What's going on there?
Right.
Was our poet just that much fun to hang out with?
Remember, alcohol back then wasn't just about getting tipsy.
Right.
It played a huge role in social gatherings and intellectual discussions.
Right.
It was a way to bond, to share ideas, to connect on a deeper level.
So it's less frat party and more philosophical debate fueled by rice wine.
Exactly. And it's important to remember that while he might have been short on material wealth at times,
Okay.
the text describes his living situation as four walls and nothing more.
Yeah,
Tao Yunming always comes across as content, even happy.
that's right. He's not complaining about his lack of possessions or chasing after wealth.
Right.
It's like he finds true richness in this simple life.
And that's a really key takeaway from all of this, isn't it?
Yeah.
Tao Yunming, or rather Master Five Willows, embodies this idea that true happiness doesn't come from material possessions.
Right.
It comes from finding joy in simple pleasures.
Okay.
Reading, writing, connecting with nature, sharing good conversation with friends.
Okay, but let's be honest, that's easier said than done, right?
Right.
Especially in our world today where we're constantly bombarded with messages about what we should be, what we should achieve,
Yeah.
be more.
Right.
So how does this ancient poet's story, his choice, speak to us now.
That's where the ending of this biography gets really clever.
Okay.
Because he doesn't end it himself.
Wait, he has someone else wrap up his own WN biography?
Yeah.
That seems kind of counterintuitive,
Yeah.
to say the least.
Right.
What's the strategy there?
It's brilliant, actually. Instead of ending by praising himself,
Right.
which would have been totally out of line with his whole Master Five Willows persona,
Yeah.
he brings in this other character,
Okay.
Qian Lu's wife.
Qian Lu's wife.
Yeah.
Okay.
And she describes him perfectly,
Yeah.
saying, not anxious in poverty, not striving for wealth and honor.
Wow, she nailed it.
She did.
It's like the perfect summary of everything we've been talking about, all
Yeah.
his values packed into a single sentence.
Yeah.
But why use her words specifically?
Well,
Who is this Qian Lu's wife?
right.
And why would Tai Yun-ming think people would care about her opinion?
That's the clever part.
Okay.
Qian Lu was this historical figure,
Okay.
known for his integrity and moral uprightness.
Okay.
Someone people really admired,
Right.
especially back then.
So he's calling on like this really respected figure.
Exactly, by having his wife,
Okay.
someone removed from the everyday world,
Okay.
someone who represents a pure, simpler time,
Right.
offer this assessment.
Yeah.
It elevates Master Five Willows,
Yeah.
connecting him to a legacy of virtue.
It's like he's saying, look, I'm not just saying these things about myself.
Exactly.
This respected figure from the past would agree.
Exactly.
Nice.
And because he's not bragging about himself directly,
Yeah.
it allows his message about true contentment and inner peace to land even stronger.
Right.
He's not preaching, he's showcasing.
Right. And that makes it far more powerful and relatable.
Right.
Even all these centuries later.
Okay, so we've got this image of Tao Yun-ming as Master Five Willows, the simple content poet who found joy in nature, friendship, and good conversation.
Right.
But then there are these other stories about him that paint a bit of a different picture. Like, this one source mentions that he loved alcohol so much
Yeah.
that he actually tried to convince the government to plant fields of sorghum
Right.
for brewing.
To brew his alcoholic beverages.
Yeah, what if...
He really liked his...
I can't even imagine what his wife must have thought.
I know, right?
Honey, you're writing a letter to the emperor about what?
We need more sorghum.
But it does make you wonder,
Yeah.
if Tao Yun-ming were around today,
Yeah.
what would his Five Willows be? That's a great question.
What simple pleasures would bring him joy in our modern world?
Maybe instead of 5 willow trees, he'd find solace in a quiet coffee shop,
Yeah.
away from the noise and bustle.
Totally.
Maybe he'd be that person who always makes time for a walk in the park,
Yeah.
no matter how busy life gets.
Right.
Or perhaps he'd be writing poetry,
Yeah.
not for fame or recognition, but for the pure joy of it,
Right.
sharing it with a close circle of friends.
It really makes you think about your own priorities, doesn't it?
It really does.
In a world that's constantly pushing us to do more, achieve more, be more,
Yeah.
maybe Tao Yunming's message of simplicity and inner peace is exactly what we need to hear.
Couldn't agree more.
And if this deep dive into his life has resonated with you,
Yeah.
I encourage you to check out his actual poetry. He's considered one of China's greatest poets for a reason.
One of the greats.
There's a depth and beauty there that translates beautifully across time and cultures.
It really does.
Consider that your homework assignment, dear listener.
Homework.
Go explore the world of Tao Yunming and discover the timeless wisdom hidden within his words.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time.
Thanks for having me.